Welcome to Open Play Podcast. My name is Will. I'm here with our special co-host Alex, Mason, Michael, and our special guest Charles, one of the local Gem Wargaming T.Os. He's actually, I think, are you the head T.O. right now, Charles, or are you giving that title to Keith?
No, it's still me.
Still, okay, yeah, all right. So, cool. So we're going to be discussing normal things on our podcast. So let's start with hobby stuff. Alex, what you got on your desk? Yeah, I know you're still waiting on the box from me. I'll get to it. Stop judging me. So what are you working on right now?
That's all I'm waiting on.
Oh, you suck.
That's like my big thing I'm going to do, dude. It's like 40 minis. What do you want from me? I'm not going to start another project when I have 40 minis on the way.
What you need is a 3D printer. I mean, I'm just kidding, Games Workshop, if you're listening. We would never.
I would never 3D print an entire Gene Stealer cult army. I would like everybody to know that.
I mean, I would.
I'm actually just gonna buy.
Mason,
I'm gonna actually just buy my own injection molding machinery.
Ooh,
Yeah,
no! Hey, listen, we got to cut that.
I'm going to make my own game with more price hikes and gouging.
Well, maybe we could sell a book that's got a bunch of pictures in it for like $80. What do you guys think of that one?
And then we only use 20% of the page for actual rules, so the book's huge, and then we can charge more money.
Oh, this is we're in it. We got it, boys.
Yeah. Episode 6, that's where we start our fun here.
Yep.
Episode 5, not 6. I'm stupid.
Episode 5 is where we lose out any possibility of GW ever giving us anything for free ever.
Look, it's playful ribbing at this point. I think the fact that we all have that we literally started a podcast because we like this stupid game so much says enough. So whatever.
Well, though we exclusively talk about 40K, technically, we love all the games. I haven't played Kill Team actually. I don't know.
Kill Team is really fun.
Oh, I need to finish my Deathcore Creed
See,
Kill Team.
there you go. You have a project.
There you go. But anyway,
All right, Mason, what are you doing?
I am building my knights for the August tournament.
You're a bad person.
I'm not a bad person. I just don't want to play the dang Space Marine mirror for 3 rounds in a row. I want to play something that's not Marines.
That's all right. That's fair.
Although,
Michael, what do you got, man?
Good, Mason. Were you going to
I
say
was going to
something?
say, although the fact that I need a bunch of magnets and I don't have them, and it's a lot easier for your speed-paced Marines, I might end up playing Dark Angels instead.
Okay, you're still a bad person.
But there's so many bikes. There's so many Ravenwing.
I guess Ravenwing aren't as obnoxious as the
Yeah,
okay,
6
fine.
Ravenwing Knights led by a Chaplain to give them all devastating wounds. That's fine.
I mean, look, it's bad, but like it's not like they're unkillable. Like they're gonna get a good volley or 2 off, and then they're probably gonna die to enemy shooting.
Oh, don't worry.
They're not unkillable.
Don't worry. I have a Deathwing command squad also in that list.
So then, okay, as I said, you're a bad person.
That's fair. Michael,
Cool.
what hobby got going?
Nothing, really. Honestly, I'm waiting for someone to get me a Gene Stealer Combat Patrol box still. That's on the way. And I probably won't be doing a ton of hobbying until likely when I go on vacation at the end of the month, because I'll probably bring some with me and just build it up north, and there's just not a lot going on.
What's wrong with the?
That's actually a really good call.
What's wrong with the combat patrol that you have upstairs in your hobby room?
Time.
You can't just call a man out like that.
Yeah, that's a fair call, because I have that Combat Patrol and a whole bunch of other stuff, but it's time. Yeah, work being work and everything else, and there's just no energy.
Well, anyone who listened to our last episode would know that I owe you that combat patrol, so anyone would know that you were calling me out, so I'm just calling you back out.
Well, I mean, you ordered it, so you did your part, so that's
true.
good.
It should be
I
here
appreciate
tomorrow,
it.
but I won't see you till next Thursday. So
Yes, so that's fine. What about you, Charles, our special guest? What do you got going on hobby-wise?
Yeah, so I got a 3D printed Tantalus staring at me over here on my desk.
Ooh.
Because it's 3D printed, the joints where it goes together are not super great, so I'm going to have to milliput them a little bit, put some hobby time into it. And I'm also not sure how to do the flight stand for it. This thing is pure resin, so it's chonky. That's kind of what's on my table right there. Just some problems to solve.
For your flight stand, might I suggest, legitimately, you don't want to use a resin flight stand, man. That thing, the first time you put it down too hard and it shatters, and then your Tantalus shatters, everyone's going to see a grown man cry in the middle of the room.
That's just another Tuesday, but I'll take that note.
I mean, it depends on the resin. I mean, what kind of resin do you use?
Right now I got some Elegoo plant-based, just because it tends to be less stinky. It's not super brittle, though.
The Syria Tech Navy Gray is what I use, and it's extremely not brittle and bendy. So, I mean, I've dropped stuff, and it actually hasn't broken.
I just ordered...
But it's also more expensive, so...
Yeah, I just ordered a bottle of that, actually. I was thought about doing see if I get away with mixing what's left in my vat with some new stuff of that. But in all honesty, I'll probably go and do this thing is so awkward. There's no real good place to put a flight stand. I'll probably have to do floral wire or something weird. I don't know. I'll figure it out though.
I had
Floral, yeah. That was going to be my recommendation. Some type of wire or legit bendy metal.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to suggest a metal. Because I looked into this a lot. Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Because I looked into it a lot because I have a BioTitan, and I was looking to see how people reinforce it because the legs, if you let it stand on the legs, they eventually get bent, like mine is. I want to fix it. And the best stuff I saw was a very small and thin piece of metal, like a metal tube basically, and just find some way to attach that on there. Maybe drill a small hole in the bottom and use that because it's going to hold up and be durable. And if it gets knocked around, it's not going to just shatter.
I was going to say, go ahead.
The BioTitan is also quite spindly, so I would hate to shatter a leg or something.
I mean, could you just do a piece of PVC and not drill out, but cut, use a grinder or something to, cut a circular indentation or whatever is on the bottom of the thing so it sits in it, and then just paint it black and put stuff around it?
That's a good call.
Yeah, I could see that working too.
Yeah.
That is very smart.
I had moderate success with my Votan bikes, just using a jumbo paper clip.
Well, those are small.
A Tantalus is 2 Gorkanauts.
Wait,
It's a big boy.
I thought it was on a 16 mil base. It's on a. Am I thinking about something?
It's not even on a base, is it, Charles?
When you get the real forgeable one, it comes with a base. I don't know what size it is, but
It's
it also...
huge.
Oh, that's the super heavy tank. I'm thinking the Talos from Drukari, and I was like, Charles, we're both from Ohio. I don't know if I can mess with a Drukari player, man. Come on, but okay, that's fine. A Tantalus is okay then.
Yeah, it's the big boat. It's I don't know. It's probably about 11 or 10 inches. Front to
So I
back.
looked it up on the Forge World. It's 11 inches from end to end.
Hey, look at that.
It's so big, Charles.
Yeah, that's probably about as big as my BioTitan, honestly.
And the
It
hard
is.
part, if you look at the photo of it, the stem attaches in the very back, so it's front heavy. So I'm not sure.
Why would they do that? Who would do that?
People who want to make you spend a lot of money at Forge World, so it breaks and you have to buy another one.
I'm sorry, our model's not supposed to be front heavy. My gaunts don't fall over unless I glued nickels to the bottom of it. I thought that was a feature.
It's not a bug, it's a feature. Wait, ears are technically bugs too.
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm hobbying on. Still got to paint it up and all that. It's just printed out right now. So.
What about you, Will? What you got?
So this is one of the only times I've ever bought Forge World resin, but a few years back, Cheryl bought me Boss Snickrot. And while I don't think he's amazing in 10th, I think he's super flavorful and cool, and I will probably field him with 10 Commandos a couple times. So he currently has green skin and yellow armor, because my army is yellow. I've got a Nob with Wabana, because Nobs with Wabanas are surprisingly good. I've got another mech, and I've got 5 Storm Boys on my desk, and I'm just batch painting them all, and then after that I'm going to pivot hard to demons, because I don't foresee orcs doing... we'll move into actual talking in a minute, but I don't foresee orcs into moving heavy into competitive play and taking lots of placements as much as demons do, and I've wanted to run my demons for a long time, so I'm going to probably pivot real heavy to demons.
I mean, you heard it here first. The 8th ranked orcs player thinks orcs aren't going to do well.
I mean, dude, look, why are you calling me out like that? What the hell, dude?
Abandoning the
'Cause
way.
it's what we do.
You're abandoning the way of the law.
I'm not abandoning it. I will probably... Don't get me wrong. I'm still going to play orcs at plenty of tournaments. And I think that orcs have by far the best aesthetic in this whole stupid setting. No offense. Actually, you can take offense to that if you want to, especially Eldari and people who play elves, like including you, Charles. Take offense. Go ahead. But orcs by far look way cooler than any other army.
Not enough leather.
Disagree.
I'm just going to go out there and say that vague humanoid with gun, still pretty lame. Still pretty boring when you could be giant alien space bug.
I mean, I also have... So in front of me, I have a guy with a literal jet engine strapped to... Actually, it doesn't look like a jet. It looks like an actual explosive strapped to his back. And he's got a hitty stick in one hand and what resembles a gun in the other. But I'm not sure if you could actually call it a gun.
Does he believe it's a gun?
Probably. He's a storm boy, so I would imagine that he would.
Then it's a gun.
See, there you go. So, Space Bug is cool, right? Yeah, it pains me to say it, but Space Bug is cool because they're not bipedal guy with gun, but orcs ain't bipedal guy with gun. Orc is mostly bipedal.
Okay, they're bipedal guy with scrap gun. I'll give you that.
And they barely have functioning guns. Well, the 10th edition, they're all guns, apparently.
Bipedal mushrooms.
Yeah, there we go. Look, when my war boss that was born 2 weeks ago crumps the Space Marine captain, I win.
Welcome to the Open Play Podcast, where everyone makes fun of orcs except for Will.
Who vehemently defends them at all points.
Of course, dude, come on.
DACA.
DACA. All right, so do we want to move into the primary part of our show today?
Yeah, let's make it hot.
All right. So our special guest, Charles, we're going to start hitting you with some hard-hitting questions that are totally not visible to you. So Charles runs, for some background, Charles runs a large charity organization out in southern Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, called Gem Wargaming. I am simply one of his T.Os out here on the East Coast. But him and a guy named Keith started this thing. How much, real quick, before we get started on the question, Charles, how much money did we, between the two of us, and it's mostly you, by the way, donate to charity last year?
So last year we cleared just over $500, but keep that in mind that was our first year, right? This is our second year coming up in October. That'll be our second GT. We're already on pace to double, maybe even triple that amount.
And what are your primary charities, Charles?
Usually something with children. So last year we did For the Love of Children, the local Dayton branch. We did a special Christmas holiday event for our local homeless shelter. We raised $600 at that event just by itself, not including the original $500. So it just depends on where the need is, where we kind of figure the need is at.
So I just wanted to get that first and foremost right out front. So while Charles is a TO out there and he's going to be answering our questions from the perspective of a TO, I just want to point out that Gem Wargaming is an amazing organization that I could not be more proud to be a part of. So thank you for giving me that privilege to do that, Charles. So now that I'm done kissing your ass, let's start asking some questions. So this is going to come from a perspective of Charles as a TO. So what's your favorite thing about 10th edition and your least favorite thing currently?
So my favorite thing, I like a lot of the new systems, but if I had to distill it down into one, is the way the characters do unit attachments now. It was a severely flawed system in 7th and previous editions. So they went away from that in 8th and 9th. But I think 10th is a return to that in a more refined way. So that's probably my favorite aspect.
I dig it. What's the thing you're digging the absolute least?
God, it's a list. At the top of that list.
So top 3 things, both from so you can either do player or TO perspective.
So TO perspective, one would be terrain. Having to clarify so many things around terrain and the way things interact with terrain is going to be painful. And I don't know if that is a symptom of a new edition just in general, or if it's just the way these rules are written. I am kind of leaning that towards the way these rules are written. Some examples would be like, if a tank is only halfway in a ruin, it can't see through it. It's still obscured. That's going to be hard to wrap your head around and have to answer a lot of questions about that. Another thing would be like if you have a unit of 5 guys and they're shooting another unit that's out in the open, and one of your guys is behind a wall and can't shoot, you are actually giving your opponent cover. So there's like a lot of weird interactions with the way the terrain is and how they grant cover and line of sight, things like that. So that's going to be not great from a TO perspective.
So, Charles, for the sake of our listeners, and also me, because this is actually the first time we've spoken, even though Wills has made me the backup TO for Gemhammer East. When did you start playing? What edition?
Yeah, so I started at the beginning of 7th, and it was right after. So 7th was when Grey Knights got kind of struck down the first time. They're doing their first apology tour, and I had some bad information, some old information that said, hey, you should invest in Grey Knights. So I bought a bunch of Grey Knights starting out, and they were really, really bad. They were really bad back then. So that was my first army. Painted it, ended up selling it. I hate that I sold it. Never sell a painted army. If you take anything from my words of wisdom, take that one. But early 7th is when I started playing.
Yeah, you kind of touched on how characters used to join squads. I remember I started playing at the end of 4th, beginning of 5th, and characters used to join in a very similar way. But I missed 6th, 7th, and 8th, so I don't really know. And then terrain is the same way. I remember when they made it so you now transition to true line of sight, and that was really a weird change because it used to be like everything could pretty much see everything, and then you just had a certain cover save based on how obscured you were. The game was really weird back then, but yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think that everything having cover, or like I think people fighting over like what has cover and what is obscuring is going to be a bit of an issue, especially at the beginning. And I do think that the GW terrain package is a little bit lacking for the new terrain rules.
Yeah, you definitely have to go third party. We invest in terrain that is, I guess you could call it WYSIWYG. So if there's a window, there is a window there. There's no, first floor is line of sight blocking, and we don't need that rule because all of our first floor is like covered, right? So that helps a little bit, but definitely actually using GW terrain, if you play with it how it is definitely going to be an issue.
Yeah. I couldn't. Alex, it's so funny. Alex and I were in our TTS game last night. He was like, can my Hive Guard shoot? And I'm like, it's so weird to me because I prescribe to the Charles theory here. All the terrain that we provide, first floor is completely solid. So I'm so used to playing with that simply because it would not really be fair if shooting armies could just 8,000 models could just dogpile in the bottom of a building and then just blast. That's why so they started blasting, but obviously that wouldn't be optimal.
Yeah, I mean, in reference to the 4th ed line of sight rules, everything only had 1 wound also, and things were getting through heavy cover, things were getting a 4-up cover save. So you get shot with a melted gun, you still have a 4-up save. So
whoa,
yeah, the rules were real weird back then. But also a Terminator, you pay 40 points for only having 1 wound, made you a little sad.
So let's go to the next question. So what issues are you foreseeing at the normal Gem Wargaming events, Charles? And so for me as one of your guys out here in the East Coast, what can Mason and I expect?
Yes, we're already seeing a little bit of that with how imbalanced things appear to be right now, with Eldar, Knights, T-Sons just kind of dunking on everyone else. And the question has come up, are we going to use an FAQ, or are we, as an independent organization, going to implement some sort of balance change until GW hopefully eventually does it themselves? And there has been a big swing in 8th and 9th. GW came back to the table with the players and said, hey, we're going to start doing balance changes and things like that and make the game better. So there's been a big swing in the TO community from trying to house rule stuff, right? ITC even shut down. They don't do they don't do ITC missions anymore, right? 7th was run all by an ITC FAQ, that a third ITC maintained third-party organization. So the game is kind of going back to that, things are so bad. When do we, as tournament organizers, have to step in and patch some things. That's come up recently, and for us, it was decided we were going to let the first event play out and see how it goes. And if GW does not address it by our second event, which is we do one a month, so a decent chunk of time they'll have to fix what is broken, because it is broken. If not, then we'll fix it ourselves, or at least attempt to. So just things like that, keeping people happy in what can be a very feels bad, at least what is seeming to be a very feels bad edition.
I think that's kind of, I don't know. So I only started playing in 8th, and that was definitely the feeling that I got with the 8th index, right? Because I started playing at the very beginning of 8th, and I had all my friends come over from 7th edition. I was in Korea, and I got massively addicted to the game, because of course I did. Who doesn't? Really? Michael, who doesn't? Not calling anyone out here.
Yes, you are, but that's fine.
And that's the best game there is, so...
Agreed. You can spend countless hours hobbying and playing. And so I had 120 boys, a war boss, a pain boy, and a big mech with KFF, and a WA banner, and then I just bought whatever. And none of my friends in Korea could even come close to killing my army before I just overwhelmed them with sheer stupid numbers. And I definitely got the feels bad, because they were still running off of 7th edition rules, trying to gather everything into their minds, and me being the absolute freak that I am, just reread the 8th core rules over and over and over, and my own core rules over and over and over, and their army's rules. So they couldn't. It's not that they couldn't win. It's just that I knew every aspect of both their army and my army, and it was totally a feels bad moment, because they had no way of dealing with me until my friend Byron. This mofo bought 18 aggressors. Okay. That started dealing with my army. That was it. That was the only thing I could do it.
Especially with that horde clearing capability.
Just bullet hosing your army to the ground.
So he would have 6 Flamestorm that would walk up, and then the other 12 would just be behind with a captain and LT, rerolling ones to hit, rerolling ones to wound. And he could on average kill 75 boys a turn if I didn't shut down his Overwatch in some way. It was a thing.
Well, fortunately, there's less rerolls in 10th edition.
Wait,
Will saw the less rerolls yesterday during the start of our
I said the
5th edition
joke,
game.
guys.
Don't forget, it's less deadly too.
Yeah, it's less deadly, too.
Hey, Alex, how many Gene Stealers smacked into the Morkonaut?
Well, I was actually going to let you answer the question of how you felt when my 6 Gene Stealers attacked a T12 target of yours.
It felt great going from 15 wounds to 3 wounds in a single round. I was like, this is my
Well, you
favorite.
had full health.
No, you had chipped some wounds off of him with shooting, so in some way, shape. I think you're not Hive Guard.
I don't think I shot that one. I think I literally almost one round it with just the Gene Stealers and the Broodlord. I shot the other ones.
Whatever, dude. It was.
I put you down to 2 wounds too. Remember, because if I had one more 6 on my Broodlord's wounds, I would have killed him.
So it's so fun. I love full rerolls and devastating wounds. God, it's such a good call.
Twin linked is a great decision, in my opinion. I love that I can just reroll wounds for free for some reason.
Yeah. So I'll stop belly aching at this point, because look, I took a list that had 2 Morkonauts and a Gorkonaut. I deserve every bad thing that happens to me. Charles, so this is something that me personally, I'm really concerned about. Typically, Gem Wargaming rounds are 2.5 hours, right? With the change to the format and drawing cards, how the hell are we going to get games done in 2.5 hours?
Yeah, I experienced the same thing, right? For now, I'm going to chalk it up to unfamiliarity with the cards, but it definitely does add some additional time when you have chosen tactical, right? When tactical was your choice, which is 99% of the time the superior choice to fix missions. I'm not sure yet. It's going to have to play out. We did recently transition to 2 hours 45 minutes just because people wanted a little bit extra time to deploy and stuff. But I feel like that's going to all be soaked up with the cards now. Now, barring the time, the extra time they take, I love the card system.
Me too.
Or
Me
the
too, by the way.
randomized system of the missions. I think they're extra fun, and they're actually fairly balanced, in my opinion.
So I agree. So my plan was to, at the beginning of each round, I'm going to draw basically master cards for deployment and mission, and I'm going to say, okay, everyone, this is what we're playing this round. You draw your tactical or your fixed cards as normal, but this is the board that we're using, because game one, my plan is fully to have everything set up, right? Everyone roll in, get their armies unpacked. Hey, this is what we're playing. This is the mission that we're playing. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah, some sort of master draw for everything but the secondaries, obviously.
Yeah.
And then just do it again the next round. I mean, I don't know if I want to pre-draw the missions and then, have to write that up and then put it out in the packet or the event description. I think I'm just going to draw the day of.
I'm with you. Yeah. I think that's the play, right? Just draw a day of. Round ends, because typically my rounds as a TO, like if my opponent's just beating the crap out of me, all right, man, take your 100, get out of my face, because it's not like we take home prizes anyway. So like, all right, you beat the crap out of me. If it's a close game, obviously I'll call it 5 minutes before the end. That way I can start setting up for the next round. And if my opponent's winning, all right, take your points and get out of here. Get out of here. Okay. So what are you, from a TO, hoping to see addressed with the first FAQ and data slates?
It's kind of a loaded question because there's so many things that could be changed that could make a huge impact on the game.
So pick a couple then.
I do worry that if you change all of the quote-unquote problem issues all at once, it's going to be pulling too many levers, right? And the data set you have is going to be far too skewed. But if I were to pick, I would say Devastating Wounds needs some fixes. They're, what I would do was probably different than what GW is going to do. Knights need some fixing up. And then, like I said earlier, the terrain rules. I would love it if they just brought back toe in. Like, toe in the terrain. It doesn't have to give you cover, but if you toe in the terrain and you activate line of sight, I think that would solve a lot of the weird terrain issues.
I can agree with that. So indirect. I noticed indirect fire wasn't on that list, huh? Oh, but I understand your point, right? Indirect fire is one of those problems that can be solved via points,
yes,
in my opinion.
Me too.
Right?
Like desolators can just be pointed out of existence.
Yeah, and I don't even want to point out even high points. Even if they put them up to 40 points per model, you're still going to see 5 or 10 desolators, because that means you can't leave Gretchen on your backfield objective because they're just going to die.
What, heavy weapon teams are 60 points each still for guard? There's some stupid low points, and I get 3 of them in that unit, and then I run 3 to 9 total, and they just all bomb you from the back line. That seems fair.
It's pretty silly. Indirect is, but I see why Charles didn't call it out, right? Because it is something that can be pointed out. It's one of those things. We have a player in the Gem Wargaming Discord, Kevin Ponder, who's very intelligent and plays very well. If you're listening, screw you, Kevin, because you're way too good. He made the point where there are certain utility aspects of the game that no matter what, you basically can't point out. Well, indirect is one of those things that you can point out. Just like the assassins, the Vindicator, the Caladius, you can point them out. But there are certain aspects of the game that no matter how many points you increase, until they negate a certain other aspect of your gameplay, it doesn't matter how many points they cost. And indirect's one of those things that'll go away. So I dig your points, Charles, 100%.
I think that the biggest thing for indirect I would like to see is you can't reroll the hit or wound.
God, yes, please.
I think that you could keep the points where the stuff is fieldable, but having Desolation Marines not be able to reroll all to hit and wound against something would be much better, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's 101 ways to fix it, right? Even taking it back to the 9th edition rules where it's minus ballistic skill and an extra save instead of cover and -1 to the roll, right? Because those are more easily modifiable. You could, a big part of the indirect is how you can overwatch in the movement phase now. That gives indirect units so much utility. If you change that and that overwatch in the movement phase to be like 12 inches, right? Then you're indirectly nerfing indirect fire. So there's a lot of different play around it. Hopefully with some tertiary things changing and some points changing, that those units will be fall in line a little bit more.
I completely agree. I actually think 100% you should not be able to overwatch indirect at all. I think that guard, I could see that being in not example, I can't think of the word, exempt from that rule, but I think you should be able to have a spotter. It should be like an additional CP or something. But I don't think that you should be able to overwatch something you're not actually watching.
It's kind of implied in the word.
Yeah.
Overguess over there.
Somebody posted something earlier. It was on Warhammer Competitive about how guard can overwatch technically like 5 times a turn if you take Tarantula turrets and Ursula Creed and some other not. And by raw it absolutely works. And it's just like, dude, what is this? But regardless, let's move on before this horse gets beaten anymore to a bloody pulp.
Can I? All right. I have one follow-up question to this question.
Yeah.
Do you want to see the first FAQ or data slate in 3 months, or are you hoping that it comes sooner?
I'm hoping that it comes sooner. I have a suspicion, and I have no idea that this is true, but so what I do know is true, just from TO chatter, is that there was supposed to be a matched play packet. I don't know if it's physical or online, whatever, probably digital, but match play rules were supposed to be dropped on the 24th. Okay.
Ooh.
That is a fact. That was supposed to have happened. I am hoping that has been delayed because that will drop at the same time that they are going to drop a balance update or a FAQ. That's my hope.
Interesting.
And we've kind of said it before, but just so everyone out there is clear, we're just 5 guys on the internet. We don't have any insider information, so don't take what Charles just said as gospel truth. Don't take any speculation that Will says about Ludas, or they're not correct.
I disagree with this. Disagree.
Flash kits.
Yeah, just remember how his last hot take landed, and don't put too many eggs in Will's basket.
Yeah, you guys all know where you can go. All right, every one of you.
Will was evangelizing Swighog Boys earlier this week. Just saying. So he changes his mind every day.
Swighog Boys are pretty
constantly.
Good. All right.
It's whatever he spikes his rolls on the last game.
Yeah, right.
If I roll all 6s, this really niche unit becomes crazy good.
The game is easy if you roll 6s.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyways, so from a personal perspective, Charles, what is currently your favorite and your least favorite army?
So my favorite army is always Drukhari. That is my mainstay. We're different than those other elves. Okay.
Not like other elves.
Yeah, we're not like the other elves. We're emo. Okay?
I'm not like other elves. I swear to God.
But that's my main army that I run. That's always my favorite army. We have had a drastic identity shift from
you're shooty now, right?
Yeah. We went from precision scalpel melee to we're basically a mobile Tau.
Ew.
So it's exciting to try something new. A little disappointing to lose some things that you had liked previously, but that's my favorite army so far.
Okay.
Least favorite army. I mean, the obvious answer is Eldar, right? Just because of how oppressive they are to play against.
I thought you were just going for the lore appropriate answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that.
Technically, is the lore appropriate answer too.
But I'm gonna say demons, just because demons and Thousand Suns. I'm gonna throw them in the same bucket, just because that's what I've played the most in like my past 4 or 5 games, and just keep getting stomped over and over. Mostly
what, you don't like having any saves of any kind on one of your models? Is that a problem?
dude, those Vortex Beasts. Our buddy Austin, he had 2 Vortex Beasts, and they have devastating wounds. And they deal, on a 6 to wound, they deal 6 plus D6 mortals. And he didn't. He just spiked the 6s. He just spiked 6s, and I took like 28 mortals at one point between the both of them, like across the game. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Just
Will, you didn't know
nonchalantly.
I did not know Vortex Beasts were that outrageous. What?
that? Yeah, other than Magnus, Mutalisk Vortex Beasts are like the best unit in the Thousands of Codex. They're ridiculous.
And
Okay.
not only is it devastating wounds on a 6 plus D6, roll, they also have a rule that just if you get near them, like just in an aura around them, they deal like D3 mortal wounds or something like that. I forget exactly, but just being close to them deals mortal wounds to you.
Oh, that seems fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just piss on you.
It's rough out here, boys.
All right. So fair enough. So Thousand Sons or Demons. That's fair. I could see both those armies being hyper annoying. The Thousand Sons rules codex. They just look. So not only is their drip on point, their rules look super cool right now. So I could see that.
But they're definitely
super
top
cool
5.
to play with, not super cool to play against.
Sure.
So we already know you're going to be playing your Dark Elves. Are you going to be playing your Knights this edition, even though we all consistently give you crap in the Discord?
Not until I lose interest in the Drukhari. That usually takes a while. I don't care about your guys' crap. I'll play what I want to play, but eventually I will tire of the Drukhari, and then I'll probably switch to Knights.
Okay, fair enough. So I have a little bit of background on this. So you've been running tourneys since like what, late 8th?
Yeah. So basically, I guess that was 9th at that point. It was right before COVID.
Yeah.
Right before COVID, we had like 2 events. Then COVID happened, and then we had to take like a year and a half off.
Okay. So how long have you personally... So give us a little bit of background. So now that we're at the end of the interview, Charles, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been playing Warhammer? What got you interested in the hobby? Why do you care about this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll start with what got me into the hobby. So, like I've been playing since early 7th, so probably like 8, 9 years, 10 years ago at this point. And what got me into the hobby was my buddy Keith, my co-founder of our organization. He basically was like, "Hey, look at these." Met the guy, we hung out a little bit, and he has like some Dark Angels on his table, and we just started talking, chatting about what these little army men were, and I was like, "Oh man, that's fucking awesome." I played a lot of D&D at the time, and it was like, oh man, each squad is like your own little character sheet that you can run around and like do cool stuff with. So that's really what got me into it. I was on a work trip, right? Keith and I used to work together. We were on a work trip. That's when I found out. So that week, I immediately went out and bought like $400 worth of models from a GW store and brought it all back in my suitcase. So it's kind of how I started. My funny story, my suitcase actually got flagged for like additional inspection, so it did not arrive in the Dayton airport when I did, so I had to wait for it the next day. And I was a little upset, and my wife was like, "Why are you upset?" I was like, "There's like $400 worth of stuff in there. Like, I hope they don't lose it." And she took it very well. Come to find out, she thought I meant $400 worth of like work stuff, not plastic army men.
Big
So
difference there.
She showed up at the door. She's like, "What the hell's this?" I was like, "I told you there was $400 worth of stuff in there."
It is work stuff. I mean, just a different kind of work.
Right.
Different kind of work. It's just charity work stuff at this point, right? Now,
yeah, the initial investment, right? But that's how I got into it. So Keith is kind of what got me into it. And his family had been playing, like his dad and brother, for like years, since like 3rd, 4th, right? So kind of got soaked into it like that. And then, learned the game all throughout 7th, 8th edition hit, started getting to competitive Warhammer. So ITC, doing the ITC mission pack, ITC terrain, all that stuff, magic boxes, right? If you remember those.
Boo.
The competitive side of the house, like the storylines on the competitive play, really is what kind of hooked me on competitive play. And by storylines, I mean like Brandon Grant winning LVO against the Knight Castellan list because of magic boxes, or Nick Nadavati, Tony gets Tony'd, if you know that moment where he basically does to Tony Grapondo what Tony Grapondo, a dick move to Tony, what Tony did earlier to another player, right? So, through the events and tournament series, you kind of have these threads that you can follow. So started going to like events and things like that. Eventually, Keith and I were like, well, we've been to some good events. We've been to some bad events. Maybe we can do that too. And here we are.
With blackjack and hookers.
Yeah. And charities. Definitely the hookers.
That's awesome, man. That's a super cool story. I did not know that about you. Anyone got any follow-up questions for Charles? Man, this was awesome. I feel like this was absolutely fire.
Yeah, I have just some kind of TOing questions that like Will and I have kind of touched on, but not really fully developed. Do you think that people should do deck checks at events?
Yeah,
because you think about it like, oh, I'm playing Death Guard. Bad example because you're not expecting to win if you play Death Guard. But like if I go do investigate signals in the corner, I'm never getting out of the corner. So I'm just gonna not have that card in there. I'm gonna have 2 copies of Cleanse, for example, in there. Is that something you think people will do? Is that something people should be aware of?
Not initially, right? Because there are so many other ways to, because you're cheating is what you're doing, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely cheating.
There's so many other ways to do that within the game that I wouldn't first jump to that, but it is certainly an additional thing that us as T.Os are going to have to be aware of. I'm curious as to how big events are going to handle that, right? Like, are they going to hand you a fresh deck of cards that you have to use their cards? Like, or are they just going to trust the players, right? I don't know. For us, though, I trust my players until they show me that I can't. And so far, I've not had any issues. So I'm just gonna let it fly. I may have to put something in the packet that says, hey, if your opponent wants to do a deck inspection, then you have to let them, right? But other than that, I think I'm just gonna let it go. But excellent point. I haven't thought about that till just now.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Mason and I were talking about that. We're like, do we make people cut before you draw, your opponent must cut? Do we have to put something do we have to implement a rule like that? Like, because I completely understand trusting your players until they show you that they're not. But at the same time, I was like, man, do we got to be more proactive around this? I just don't want to get to the point, right, where we're mid-tournament and somebody's like, hey, man, this guy's got 2 of the same card in his deck, and I look at the deck, or they're like, hey, he shuffled and I didn't cut, and he drew the perfect cards turn after turn after I went to the bathroom. And it's just like...
I think the easiest fix is just going to be take whatever Magic has in their tournament pack and just use that.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Because obviously you're bringing your own deck. I don't know if the big events inspected, but when I played Magic at like the local level, nobody like inspected my deck. Maybe they do at the bigger ones. But like you offered your opponent a cut and they cut it and they just kind of went about your way. And if something was fishy, then it could be looked at afterwards. Or even, I'd have to look it up because I don't know offhand, but Ice and Fire uses a deck-based system as well. We could look up and see what they do and just, let's just steal from someone else, make it easier on us.
100% agree. Okay, Michael, you had a question, right?
Yeah, this is a kind of general tournament question, not really related to 10th, but as someone who's not played in a tournament yet and who's, a year in, more or less, how do you handle modeling for advantage at tournaments? Like what, if you see something that's obviously that way, I mean, how do you handle that situation? Or if somebody comes up and says, hey, is this legal? What do you do in that situation?
Our official rule is anything that is not the official, outline, 1, should be approved. But 2, if you have worries about it, you should also bring a cutout or another model that is modeled with the correct size. To me, personally, it doesn't it's not really like too much of an issue. A very common example that you'll see is like a Riptide down on one knee, like aiming its gun. We all know how big a Riptide is supposed to be, and if it ever came up, we would just default to the approximate silhouette of the baseline model. But that's how we handle it. You always use the baseline silhouette if an issue ever comes up.
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
And look, even I'll admit, I've even had a couple instances, right? My Boss Zagstruck is 100% 3D printed because I refuse to use the Forge World Boss Zagstruck because he looks like a... you know what? There's no words that I can use right now that accurately describe how terrible that model looks. So that would be socially acceptable. So I printed my own with gigantic demon wings, and whatever penalties that come with that, so be it. If my wings make him the closest model to you, well, now I accept that, and that's how I've relayed that to the players out here in Virginia. Look, you got a cool 3D printed model, man. I'm all for it. If there's a question of whether or not who gets the advantage, well, it ain't you because you have a custom model and not an official model.
Yep, exactly. That's modeling for disadvantage.
You can model for disadvantage all you like, baby. Man, I'm the most guilty of that. Like Boss Zagstruck, I got tons of boys who got like gigantic choppas that extend 2 feet past their heads. Deal with it, dude. That's when you take cool modeling and you take the rule of cool, you're gonna suffer the byproducts of that. So I guess if you're out here trying to shed a pound of water weight sweating at every RTT, well, that's you don't want to be that cool.
And what's different? You said you used to play competitive Magic. I don't know how deep into the weeds you got and stuff like that. I used to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. My friend actually went to Worlds. I went to the North American World Championship qualifier a couple times. The joy about Warhammer is it's not a lot of kids playing at the competitive level unless their parents are also playing. It's kind of too expensive. Typically, it's more like older adults, like typically people like 25 to and up. So we're all playing game. They're now calling me a nerd in Discord. Everybody, I want you to know.
No, we would never insult Jason like that.
We have a Warhammer 40K podcast. No one in here is getting the cool cards. Let's be realistic here.
I don't want to hear it. Yugi, tell me what trap card I've drawn.
Yeah, it's because you said Yu-Gi-Oh. You just knocked yourself down around.
Dude, whatever. That game was fun.
Yeah.
I used to get really high.
We're all just giving you crap, Mason.
But you're kind of more adult-minded. You're playing the game together as much as you are versus each other. Even in a tournament with it's not cash, it's store credit on the line, but still it's money, basically, because you're going to buy more plastic men with it. You're like, no one can remember all these rules in one. I can't remember the entirety of your army. Charles, if we played, I've never played against Drukhari in 10th edition, and there's not really a lot of Drukhari players, so I probably won't play Drukhari anytime soon, so I'm going to need you to tell me, okay, who can advance and charge? Who can advance and shoot? How do you get pain tokens? Can you generate pain tokens other than killing stuff? I'm going to have to rely on you to tell me and be honest, because we're both adults. We're playing a game together, and we're playing a game. We want to have a good one. We don't want to have it I'm not going to tell you what my army can do. You're not going to tell me what my army can do, and whoever can can gotcha harder is going to win.
Yeah, 100%. It just goes back to that, social contract. Say, do you trust them to have bad, fake cards or not, right? Of course, you don't expect anyone to have, a rigged deck because you're there as adults to play a game together. I say a lot, I remind people, it's kind of like my personal mantra that you are playing a game with your opponent, not against your opponent. And in that same spirit, you gotta trust that they will do right by you. So
I literally could not agree more. The social contract in Warhammer, and obviously there's gonna be 5 people listening to the podcast who's this is the worst take I've ever heard. If my opponent isn't having an actively bad time, I don't want to be there. But really, Warhammer is about 2 grown-ass men bringing a bunch of plastic miniatures that they've put hundreds or thousands of hours of hobbying time into, and saying and shouting at each other, going "Wah!" as they charge across the table with their plastic men and their tape measures and their dice, and having a good time. if you are actively making your opponent have a bad time in Warhammer, that is one of the most despicable things you can do if you're doing it intentionally. Obviously, if you're playing Eldar right now, look, I hate you, but like I don't hate you on a personal level. If you're just playing Eldar because you have the army, like obviously you suck, but like it's fine because I fully understand. I'm coming to a competitive setting. You're going to bring the strongest army that you can. But if your goal is to make sure that I have as little fun as possible, well, then I don't want to be around you, right? So I completely agree with your take on that, Charles.
Well, I mean, you just have to judge people the correct way by the dice they bring. You can't, have a maniac with like 20 different size and colored dice at the table. They have to match.
Yeah, that person would be a psychopath, right? And we could never be friends with them.
I know, really. Just a bag of random dice? Come on.
I get a mold of that I can make candy dice out of. When my dice roll bad, I should eat them in front of my opponent to assert dominance.
Okay,
Smart.
wait. Cheryl actually is very hobby. I'm going to make her do this. That's amazing. That's the best idea I've ever heard.
Thank you. You can have it for free.
I'm taking it. I wasn't asking.
Well, I gave it, so you didn't take it.
All right.
Googling candy dice commission.
All right, well, we're at about 55 minutes. Michael, you want to take us on the outro?
Sure. So this has been Open Play. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate the time, Charles, you spent talking to us and telling us your story. It was a really good episode overall. I hope you enjoyed the experience as well. If y'all have questions, comments, concerns, you can email us at Will, Mason, Alex, or Michael at openplaypodcast.com. And we'll be back in a few weeks with another episode. Thanks, y'all.